What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today's video is a clip from The Line. If you want to catch me on The Line, I'm on there once a month to host Skept Talk. The Line also has a number of other shows that you might be interested in. So after you watch this clip today, why don't you go on over there, subscribe, and be sure to catch the next show. All right. Well, we do have, we're starting to get people lined up. I do want to get to this next caller though. I'm really hoping that it's not going to be too contentious, but, we're going to pick up Shane. Hi there, Shane. How you doing?
Oh, sorry. I was muted. Sorry.
No, that's okay. How you doing, Shane?
All right. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So what's up?
Good. So yeah, last time you were talking about the history. And yeah, it did.
Shane, I don't know if you're like on speakerphone or what. It was a little hard for me to hear.
Okay. Yeah, I was having an issue with that, the call screener. I guess maybe I'll just try and call back at a different time.
We can hear you all right now.
Yeah,
okay,
you're good now.
Cool. All right. So, yeah, last time John was on, there was a call that got a little heated about the historicity of Jesus. And the caller mentioned that he thought Jesus was a failed Messiah, and John was saying that he doesn't think that that's really established. And then it got to the passage of Isaiah 52 and whether that's a Messianic prophecy or whether it was considered that at the time or not. And then it kind of devolved into a my scholars versus your scholars sort of thing. So I figured, I guess, since we have the opportunity that Josh is here, maybe we could, I'd like to know what his opinion is on that passage and maybe what the scholarly consensus would be of whether or not the Jews considered that to be a messianic prophecy at the time.
So this is a question about mythicism?
Yes. Well, more or less.
Yeah.
Sorry. Shane, I don't know if you can see that. I sort of faded off the screen there.
No. Oh, sorry. No, I'm not watching the...
Yeah, no. Go ahead, John. Yes.
Well, so I mean, I was just going to clarify one thing is that it's not that like when you say the Jews believe this, that's a little bit broad stroking because there's multiple different groups of Jews at the time. They were all interpreting things in different ways. And so really it's just were some Jews interpreting it in this fashion is what the question should more accurately be. Because saying were the Jews interpreting it this way kind of makes it seem like it was more monolithic than the Jews actually were at the time. So, Josh, if you want to weigh in on this, I'm perfectly fine with it. I know where you stand, in your fade off there, but feel free
That's
to
my stance, right?
weigh in on it.
Slowly, I'm that Homer Simpson fading into the hedge. That's what I'm doing. No, so obviously there are two different questions. I think probably built into it. One is what was the sort of the original intent of Isaiah 52 to 53, and then how did later, Jewish interpreters, understand that text? So I'd be able to say a little bit about the former, although that is obviously an incredibly complex passage, even from the standpoint of the first question. But I wouldn't be able to comment on later Jewish interpretation of it because it's outside of my field, unfortunately. And I don't know that any comment that I would give on the former, I've lost track of my former and latter questions, but I don't know that I would have a lot to add here that would be relevant, I think, probably to the question that's being discussed, if that makes sense.
And I would totally agree with Josh on the former, probably. I think me and Josh and I are in lockstep with the original intent of the passage versus, how later Jews might have interpreted it.
Okay, that makes sense. So I think we found a point of agreement and a point where, you two kind of deviate.
Well, I mean, we deviate in that Josh is not taking a position on it because he doesn't. At least this is what I got, Josh, was that you just simply don't know enough about the topic. And so, I mean, we're deviating it only in that I've spent a significant amount of time reading the scholarship on it, whereas Josh hasn't.
Yeah. And if anybody knows anything about me, yeah, that's like my motto, right? I'm going to get a T-shirt made up, maybe a bow tie. I'll make a bow tie that says that's not my field. It's not my field.
Well, you steal those bow ties from Kent Hovind anyway, so.
That's right. I get, who is it? Bill Nye, the science guy. I get a lot of comparisons there, but I think bow ties are cool.
But
cool,
as far as on the top, good. Sorry, good. You go right on ahead there, Shane.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, unless you have anything else to add, I guess that kind of clears up what I was wondering.
Okay. Well, I mean, I was just gonna say, I know that call got contentious the last time I was on, but I mean, I didn't want it to devolve into just my scholars are better than your scholars, but it's just in the call, it got a little frustrating when, first it was, scholars don't say this. And then I bring out, I think I literally counted on my hand, 12 different scholars, which looking at like the scholarship since then, it's actually like in the about 30 or so scholars now that assert the position that the suffering and dying Messiah was a pre-Christian Jewish idea that was, in circulation at the time. But, it always happens that it's, oh, well, no scholars say this. And then you show them that scholars say this. And that there are some scholars out there that are experts in that particular, field that affirm this. And then it's, well, you don't have the right scholars. Like these scholars are better than the scholars that you said.
I think the point he was maybe trying to make, if I could try and steelman what he was saying, is like, have you ever heard of the Project Steve, as far as evolution? Like creationists will say, oh, here's a list of 100 scholars that say, that verify creationism. And then the Project Steve is, here's a list of like 10 times as many biologists that are just named Steve or Stephanie that disagree with that. So I think he was trying to say that, yeah, you can point to 30 scholars, but is that really the consensus, or is that the consensus opinion of that passage among scholars that are experts in that area?
And, honestly, I don't know how to translate that competently to the topic that we're discussing here, because that's a hard science, evolution, and this is history, which is not as certain as science is. And, with history, you're working with, what most likely happened, what was most likely the case. And so it would be similar, if I was, I had a list of people that were from, creationist apologetic schools, let's say. But I mean, the kinds of scholars that I was pulling out is like Daniel Boyarin, who's a rabbinical scholar that he's retired now, but he used to be a very prestigious scholar at UC Berkeley. And he's a premier Talmudic scholar who was affirming this, saying that, traditionally it's seen that the Christians perverted the understanding of Isaiah 52 and 53 in order to justify their Savior dying. But he, in no uncertain terms, he says this has to be done away with. This idea was pre-Christian. Like this idea happened prior to the advent of Christianity. It's a paraphrase, but nearly an exact quote from Boyarin. And I mean, he's not alone in this. You've got George Brooke, who also cites this. You've got Martin Hengel, who also cites this. And so these are not, like, to compare them to like people from Creationist Ministries International or from AIG or something like that, I feel like is an incredible disservice to these scholars in these fields. I feel anybody that's suggesting that they are like creationists in the evolutionist debate, in the evolution debate, I feel like they are being very, I can't think of a better word, but very shitty towards these scholars. And I think that it's uncalled for, personally.
So I think the point that the other caller was trying to make, and I'm not sure if this, but he was saying that a lot of the scholars that either you cited or that do agree with that are evangelical Christians and have a vested interest in that narrative being true. And he was saying kind of like Daniel, it would be similar to be like if you were a Darwin mythicist and you were citing answers in Genesis to disprove the existence of Darwin, I'm
You
not
see,
sure
you
if
keep
that's
comparing
exactly what's going
hold
on, or
Shane, you keep comparing like scholars from Berkeley and all of these other prestigious institutions to these people from like AIG who are obviously not of the same kind and quality of scholars as what I'm talking about here. So, I mean, if you're going to sit there and try to say that Daniel Boyarin, who's himself a Jew, is too Christian and is affirming this idea because of some Christian leaning, I feel like you're going to have a tough time selling that. And
well,
so,
obviously not him, no.
Huh?
I said obviously not him, no, because he's Jewish, right?
Okay. So, and so now we're down to cherry picking which scholars I feel not that necessarily that you were cherry picking, but in this hypothetical conversation that we seem to be having, it's now down to cherry picking this idea. Cherry picking who supports this idea.
So earlier, when talking about the Exodus, Josh mentioned the scholarly consensus of experts in the field and whether or not they would say no, there doesn't seem to be evidence to support this Exodus the way it happened, or if there was Jewish slaves in Egypt at that time. So I'm wondering if the scholarly consensus would say that about Isaiah, or that the passage we're talking about is whether it's a prophecy or not. Because it seems like you were okay with using scholarly consensus then, and then here, when it's kind of against you, you're saying, well, this is just a soft science and we can't trust scholarly consensus and that sort of thing. So it seems like it's a little bit of a double standard when it comes to things like that.
I don't see, when you start to bring up consensus, it's going to be hard to judge this, like I could tell you that, like, if I tell you there are over 30 scholars that are not mythicists, for one, for two, not all of them are Christian. But if I tell you that there's over 30 scholars that either assert or prove that there was a pre-Christian suffering and dying Messiah, how in the hell are you going to make the determination that that is the consensus?
Well,
I don't know how you would actually do that.
Then you would talk about the number of scholars that don't conclude that and compare the two numbers. We're 30 versus like 2,000. I don't know what the number is. Is it 200?
Oh, okay. So John Collins, there's John Collins. I know John Collins. He doesn't prescribe to the pre-Christian suffering and dying Messiah thing.
So this is why I was kind of trying to ask Josh if he knows what the scholarly consensus about this is, because I know you can talk about, you could probably name more than 30. You could maybe name 40 or 50, especially if you're saying people. Why don't we just start pulling shit out of our ass then? Hey, you know what? I've got 150,000 scholars right now that affirm my position. Oh, but what if we have 300,000 scholars that don't affirm your position? Well, let's just keep pulling numbers out of our ass. So, I don't see the benefit in talking about this. My daughter. Maybe since my daughter needs my attention, we should end the call here. Thank you very much. I didn't mean to be as contentious as it was, but I enjoyed the discussion and the conversation.
Okay. Thank you so much, Shane, for calling in. Appreciate you. I hope you have a great night there, man.
Thanks, you too.
All right.
And there is nothing better than the sound of kids on the phone. Like, I have 5 of my own and 2-year-old twins. So I always apologize for them, but everybody always is like, no. I think they want to hear. People want to hear the kids more than they want to hear me. So,
all right, I do have to say I always love hearing kids on the phone. I loved hearing Xander when I would call him on the phone. So I definitely echo that. What's up, Heathen? Thank you so much for checking out this clip from The Line. If you enjoyed this clip today, you can get more of it by subscribing to The Line. So hit up those links in the description. So hit up those links in the description so you can catch me the next time I host Skep Talk. I don't know, was that 20 seconds? Here's some filler shit for, to fill out the 20 seconds. I don't know. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy.